What is going on YouTube? Just helping you out here. And in this video, I'm going to be unboxing the Adidas Tech Response 2.0 golf shoe. This particular shoe is the black colorway and it is a size US 10.5. Once I have used these shoes for a good bit of time, I'd be more than happy to make a review video where I go over my experience with the product and ultimately give you my overall opinion of it. Alright, let's get right into this. So if we take a look here, we have pretty much a generic shoebox. The Adidas logo is on the top. We have a smaller one on the front here. If we move over to the right, there's one in the top left. On the back, we have one right in the middle, and there's also the Adidas website down here in the bottom right-hand corner. And then on this panel right here, same thing, Adidas logo in the top right. We have a little hole right here, probably for some ventilation. And then right here, we have the label that tells you what the shoe is. So it's Tech Response 2.0. Here's a little picture of it. It's a US size 10.5, and then down here we have some colorway information. Now if we move to the bottom, in the bottom right hand corner here, you'll see that we have some disposal information and the fact that this was made with earth-friendly materials. And so now I'm going to go ahead and open it up. This is just your classic hinged box. Now you won't be able to see it on camera, but we do have a little bit of copyright information right there. And you'll see that the shoes themselves are wrapped up in this nice paper. And so I'm going to go ahead and take them out of the paper now. All right, and so now what we're going to do is we're going to take a closer look at the left shoe. And for those of you who have watched one of my previous shoe unboxing videos, you'll know that I like to get started with the sole. All right, so it looks like we have a ton going on down here, so I'm just going to go ahead and start with these 6 main cleats. And if we take a look at these up close, you'll see that each one has an Adidas logo in the middle. We have these 2 white divots, and then we have these 6 pieces here that jut out. And there's this little stair-stepping pattern on them, and they also have this little circular piece that kind of sticks out too. They're also made out of a pretty hard material. I think this piece down here is mostly plastic, and then these are more of a hard rubber, because you can see they do bend, and that makes sense because if you're trying to grip to the ground, it makes sense that these things should be able to move a little bit so they can grip to whatever you're stepping on. But if I tap the middle here, you can hear that sounds pretty much like plastic. Now below the actual cleat, you'll see that there's sort of this circular pattern in the sole rubber, and it is also a little bit raised, and that is likely to really stabilize these cleats so that they stay in place. And then if you look from this point of view, you can see these are pretty far raised off of the actual shoe, so they will be sticking into the ground pretty significantly. It may also be hard to see, but each of these pieces that juts out of the cleat does have a divot in the bottom. And so each of these 6 cleats will be the main way that your shoes will be gripping to the ground, but as you can notice, we do have several other pieces to the bottom of this shoe that can certainly grip the ground. And so that'll really be all these X's that you see kind of all around here, as well as these little pointed pieces. And if I get up close on the X's, you'll see they kind of have a square pattern on them, which may also help with grip a very little bit, but that'll likely get worn away pretty fast. And if we show on the back here, these pointed pieces also have that same pattern as well as on the front. So you can see we do have a ton of those X's and a ton of those pointed pieces. So those will definitely help you grip the ground in addition to these main cleats. And now under all that, we do have some additional designs. You'll see we have this big line right here. This honestly is in a very interesting location. It's kind of where your toes would bend. So I'm wondering if this right here is to help the sole bend a little better if you were to bend your toes like this. And now we also have several lines like this that goes all the way from here to here. Up front, those lines are a little bit closer together. And then down the entire shoe, you'll see we have lines that go all like this. And then again, we have some here and also more of the lines like this that are shown over here. So there's quite a bit of patterning going on here. Some of those designs may have some functional purpose, but I feel like most of that is probably more aesthetic purpose. I think a lot of your functionality is really in the grip, which, as I said before, is going to be your 6 main cleats as well as all those X's and pointed pieces. Now, aside from the white on these cleats, you can see the sole is entirely black. And the last two things that I would like to point out about the sole is we do have an Adidas logo right here, and also right here you'll notice that this piece is raised, and that is going to push your heel up a little bit, likely to even out the pressure that you would apply to all 6 of these cleats to increase your grip on the ground. Okay, so that's pretty much all I have to say about the sole. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the outer side of the shoe and talk about the midsole. So you'll see the midsole starts out pretty thin here, and then it gets bigger as we go to the back of the shoe. It also does have this lined pattern on it, and that's only really on part of it. If you get up close, you can see that there's a lined piece here, but there's also a smooth piece above that. And you'll see that's made out of a white material, and it is pretty squishy. If I dig my fingers in, I can really push into that. And then just above that, we have a little bit of leather. So here we have kind of a thin layer, and that has a single seam up top here. And then on the back, we have a piece right here that is double seamed. And then on the front here, we have kind of a wavy piece that's also double seamed. And then above that, we have the traditional 3 stripes for the Adidas logo. This material feels kind of similar to what we have down here, and you'll also see it has that line pattern. And that is on top of another leather piece, so you'll see the leather piece behind it that goes around like this and also goes into where the laces go. Another thing I'd like to point out about the leather is it is decently stiff. It's not impossible to move, but it definitely is stiff enough to keep the shape of the shoe. And then finally below that, we have kind of a mesh layer. So we have a couple mesh pieces here, we have some here, and also some back here. And mesh like that is always good for breathability. So if it's a hot day and you're out golfing with these, having that breathability is really nice so you don't get super sweaty. And if there's wind blowing or anything, you will certainly feel it through this mesh. Right here, you'll notice this bulges out a little bit, and that's because it does have some padding, and that is going to be to support your ankle a little bit while you're wearing these. All right, so now we're going to move on to the front here, and you'll see we have this little rubber cap on the toe. And if we get up close, you can see that kind of has a random squiggle pattern. That squiggle pattern is likely just for aesthetic purposes, but this actual toe cap is likely to protect the leather behind it. So in case you kick something, you're going to be hitting this rubber instead of this leather most likely. And you'll see this leather piece is what I was talking about before, the double seam that comes from the outside, and it goes all the way through to this piece right here. And then if we move over to the inside of the shoe here, you'll see this is fairly similar to the outside. We have the white midsole with the pattern, we have a few leather panels, we have the traditional 3 stripes, the mesh, the padding, everything. So this side right here really is pretty much the same as the outside. And so we'll go ahead and move on to the back. Now back here, we also do have one of those black rubber pieces that has the squiggle pattern on it, kind of like what we have on the front. You'll see on the sides, it's really thin here, and then it kind of expands as we get to the back, but obviously this is not nearly as thick as what we have on the front. You'll see again that midsole does wrap around the back. It is pretty thick back here. It's actually kind of interesting though. I'm noticing now that this side right here almost looks a little higher than this side. So I don't know if that's intentional or just a very minor error that came up in manufacturing. But anyways, you'll notice that the double seam leather pattern from both sides here goes all the way to the top right here. And we also have an Adidas logo in the back right here. Now, if we go ahead and take a look at the top of the shoe, we have this tag right here. And this tag just essentially tells you what it is. Tech Response 2.0, it's a men's golf shoe, and it's size 10.5. Okay, so if we take a look here, you'll notice that the laces are just a classic round lace. Nothing too fancy about that. Same with the eyelets here. You'll see this leather piece that I talked about before. It does go all the way up into where the laces go in, and you'll see it kind of has a wavy pattern like this. You'll also see that those two panels join together here in the front. You'll see the tongue is also made out of that mesh material, again, for ventilation and breathability. And then on the tongue, we do have a leather piece that loops some of the laces into it, and it also has an Adidas logo on it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and feel the tongue. It honestly does feel pretty thin, and my experience with that is if you do tighten the shoes pretty tight, it may apply some uncomfortable pressure on your foot. So I'll have to let you know about that in the review video, but my first impression is this does feel pretty thin, so I would be a little bit worried about that. If I pull these apart, you can see that's a nice big rectangle there, and you can actually see the tongue is reasonably wide, so it could really wrap around your foot and provide some comfort from that point of view. And so I can feel the laces in here, so if we take those out, you can see those have some reasonable length to them. So honestly, it may even be necessary to use the top eyelet. Again, I'll have to let you know in the review video. And If we take a look at the inside here, you'll see that we have an Adidas logo right there. If I push on the insole, it honestly doesn't feel that squishy, but it can be kind of hard to tell just based off of pushing it like this. I'll have to wear them to see if it provides a decent bit of support and whether or not it will hurt my feet. If we pull up the tongue here, you'll see that it says these were made in Vietnam, and it again gives some more information on the size. And it does come with this little bit of tissue paper just to make sure the shoe stays in its form while it's being transported and such. And so we'll go ahead and take that out. And yeah, so this mesh is also pretty thin. You can see if I move my fingers in there, you can definitely see that. So I do like stuff like that. My feet can get kind of sweaty when I'm playing sports, even golf on a hot day. So, having that breathability really does help with that. And especially if there is a little bit of a breeze, that can feel very nice. Now, I mentioned the padding on the sides right here, but if I squeeze the back here, this also does have a fair bit of padding, so I think they did a really good job stabilizing the ankle back here and really providing some decent support and some padding to make sure that your foot is pretty comfortable back here. Now, just my opinion of the overall shoe, I really do like it. If you ignore the sole and you ignore the cleats on here, this pretty much looks like a traditional sneaker. You could even say it kind of looks a little bit like a running shoe. I know some companies do still make them, but years ago, most golf shoes looked like, they were very distinct. They had their own unique look, and I know that as things are modernizing more, companies have been shifting more towards making shoes that look more like your typical everyday sporty sneaker looking shoe. And I think Adidas did a really good job with these. Like I said, if somebody was wearing these and I couldn't see these cleats, my mind would not go toward that is most certainly a golf shoe. So I really like the look of these. I think they did a great job, and I look forward to trying them out and letting you know how they are. Alright, so that's about it for this unboxing. Feel free to check out all my other unboxings in the playlist in the top left corner. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like. Leave a comment if you have any questions or an idea for a future video. Feel free to follow my Instagram and TikTok in the description below. And lastly, please don't forget to subscribe and tell your friends about my channel so I can grow and help more of you guys out. I'm just helping you out. See you in the next video.